Okay, let's unpack this. You know that feeling when you're like doing all the right things with your money, maybe budgeting, saving a bit, but you're just not seeing those big results you want. It feels like there's something missing.
Yeah, like an invisible barrier or something. It's a common frustration, I think.
Totally. Well, today we're doing a deep dive into this idea that maybe there's a crucial inner game to wealth, something we often completely overlook.
That's right. It's fascinating how much energy goes into the how-to, the strategies, the investments.
Right.
But we don't always look at the underlying beliefs and attitudes, the stuff that can really make or break those strategies.
Exactly. And based on your request, we're really digging into T. Harv Eker's book, Secrets of the Millionaire Mind. Our mission today is basically to understand the core ideas he lays out, these mindset shifts that supposedly separate people who get ahead financially from those who seem to struggle.
And what's really compelling about Eker's approach is his focus on this internal money blueprint, as he calls it.
Right, the blueprint.
Yeah. He draws on his own journey, ups and downs, and what he saw in thousands of his seminar students. He suggests our subconscious beliefs about money are really the main drivers.
And it's interesting, his background, isn't it? He wasn't just handed wealth.
Not at all. He talks about business failures, starting over.
Right, and he even starts his seminars saying, "Don't believe a word I say."
Which is quite a statement. It encourages you to test it out for yourself.
Yeah, he's basically saying, these aren't absolute truths, but they're principles based on results mine and my students. Try them. See if they work for you.
That's a really key point, I think. It's not dogma. It's presented as observation and experience.
And the book kind of positions itself as finding that missing link, between just wanting success and actually getting there.
Exactly. Beyond the usual stock tips or real estate schemes, he's going deeper.
So he's saying without that solid inner foundation, all the external strategies might just fizzle out.
Pretty much. Or give you only temporary gains, like building a house on sand, maybe. It needs that solid base.
Okay, so let's talk more about this core idea, this money blueprint.
Yeah.
What exactly is it?
Okay, so the central idea is that we all have this subconscious financial template, a kind of blueprint. And it gets shaped by, well, pretty much everything we absorbed growing up, especially childhood.
You mean like things our parents said about money, our friends, teachers?
Exactly. Parents, siblings, friends, authority figures, even media and culture. All those messages, explicit or implicit.
So all those little comments, observations, maybe even arguments about money we witnessed.
Yeah, Eker argues they create this powerful, often totally invisible script. It dictates how we think, feel, and act around money.
Wow. And that script then determines our financial reality, often without us even realizing it.
That's his core argument. It's like we have a financial thermostat, set to a certain level.
I think he uses that analogy, right? With lottery winners.
He does. And it's pretty striking. You see studies where lottery winners, despite the huge windfall, often end up back where they started financially. But then conversely, you have self-made millionaires who might lose everything.
And they often bounce back relatively quickly.
Right. Eker says that's because their internal thermostat, their blueprint, is just set higher. Remember that blueprint we talked about?
Yeah, the subconscious programming. That makes a lot of sense, actually.
So our mission today really is to understand how this blueprint gets wired and, crucially, how we might be able to rewire it.
Okay, so what's the roadmap he gives us in the book? How does he structure this?
Well, it's pretty much split into two parts. Part one is all about understanding that mental money blueprint, how we're conditioned.
Right.
And he introduces 4 key strategies for revising it, reprogramming, essentially.
Okay, understanding and revising. And part 2, that's where he gets into the specifics of how wealthy people think differently.
Exactly. Part 2 introduces 17 wealth files. These are basically distinct attitudes and actions Eker observed differentiating rich, middle class, and poor mindsets regarding money.
17 different ways of thinking.
Yeah. And we'll obviously touch on some of the really key ones today, the ones that seem most impactful, along with the practical things he suggests doing, like these declarations and actions.
Okay, sounds like a solid plan.
Yeah.
Where should we start with these wealth files? Which one's first?
I think a great place to start is wealth file #1. I create my life versus life happens to me.
Okay.
This one really sets the stage for everything else, I feel. It's about taking ownership.
Right. I create my life versus life happens to me. Seems straightforward, but what's the deeper distinction Eker makes?
Well, the contrast is pretty stark. It's about taking radical responsibility for your financial situation versus feeling like you're just a victim of circumstances. Rich people, Eker says, fundamentally believe they are the creators. They're in the driver's seat of their life, including their finances. They feel in control, they look for solutions, are always trying to improve things.
And the flip side, the life happens to me mindset.
That's often characterized by blaming the economy, the government, your boss, bad luck, you name it.
Making excuses.
Exactly. Blame, justification, complaining. He sees these as hallmarks of a victim mentality, which leads to feeling powerless, passive, basically not taking effective action.
It definitely feels more empowering to think you're the one creating the results. How does believing this actually change how you handle money day to day?
Well, if you truly believe you create your life, you're way more likely to own your spending, right? And your career choices, your investment decisions.
You see problems as things to be solved, not just complained about.
Precisely. Challenges become opportunities. Eker really emphasizes becoming aware of when you slip into blaming or justifying. He uses this really intense phrase, financial throat slitting. Yeah, suggesting that every time you blame or complain about money, you're actively harming your own chances of wealth.
That's graphic, but it makes the point. So what are some practical things Eker suggests for this file?
One useful exercise is a daily debrief. End of the day, write down one thing that went well financially and one thing that didn't.
Okay.
And then, importantly, analyze your role in creating both outcomes. What did you do? It builds that awareness and accountability muscle.
That sounds really practical for building self-awareness around money habits.
Yeah.
Okay, what's another key difference in thinking?
Like the look at Wealthfile #3, committed to being rich versus wanting to be rich. This gets into the level of intention.
Yeah. There's definitely a difference between kind of wishing for something and being fully committed, all in.
Huge difference. Eker stresses that rich people aren't just wishing, they have a deep, unwavering commitment to creating wealth.
So it's more than just a desire.
Much more. It's a definite decision. It comes with determination, consistent action, prioritizing financial goals. They're willing to do what it takes, basically, within ethical bounds, of course.
Whereas just wanting to be rich is maybe more passive.
Often, yeah. It might involve some wishful thinking, maybe occasional effort, but not that same focused, persistent drive. And here's a crucial point Eker makes.
Yeah.
You tend to get what you subconsciously want, not always what you say you want.
Back to the blueprint again.
Exactly. If part of your blueprint has reservations about wealth, maybe fears or negative associations, that internal conflict can sabotage your efforts no matter how much you say you want it.
That really ties it together. So how do you bridge that gap? How do you move from just wanting to being truly committed?
He suggests a couple of things. One is getting really clear on your why. Write down why creating wealth is important to you. What will it allow you to do or be?
Okay. Connecting to deeper motivations.
Right. That fuels the commitment. Another action is making a verbal commitment. Tell someone, a friend, partner, coach, your intention to become wealthy by a certain date.
Making it public adds accountability.
It does. Like drawing a line in the sand for yourself. Maybe it's like dedicating specific hours each week to learning about investing, like you said, or starting that side business even when you're tired. It's that consistent follow through.
That's a good illustration. Consistent action. Okay, moving on. What about the scale of ambition? How big do people think?
That leads perfectly into Wealthfile #4, think big versus think small. This is all about the scope of your vision and impact.
Go big or go home kind of thing?
Sort of, yeah. Eker introduces what he calls the law of income.
Okay.
It states that your income will be in direct proportion to the value you deliver to the marketplace.
Value delivered. Makes sense.
And he breaks that value down into 4 factors.
Wow.
Supply, demand, quality, and laces. The big one here, quantity.
Quantity. So how many people you reach?
Exactly. That's where thinking big comes in. How many people do you serve or affect with whatever value you provide? Rich people, he observes, tend to think on a much larger scale.
They aim to solve problems for lots of people.
Yes. They look for ways to impact millions, if possible, and because they serve more people, they tend to earn more and often feel more fulfilled, too.
So it's not just about having a great product or service, but also about getting it out there to many people.
Precisely. Thinking small inherently limits your reach and therefore your income potential. Eker argues the world actually needs more people to step up and think bigger to share their gifts more widely.
That's quite motivating. How do you start shifting toward thinking bigger, practically?
He suggests identifying your natural talents first. What are you genuinely good at?
Okay.
Then brainstorm how you could use those talents to solve problems for, say, 10 times the number of people you currently reach.
10 times, wow.
Yeah, it forces you to stretch your thinking beyond current limitations. How could you scale your impact?
I like that challenge. Okay, now, how we view other people who've already made it financially. That seems important too.
Definitely. That brings us to wealth file #size. Admire rich people versus resent rich people. This explores how our attitude towards wealth affects our own potential.
Yeah, I can imagine resentment being pretty counterproductive if you want wealth yourself.
It's incredibly counterproductive, according to Eker. If you resent rich people, you're basically programming yourself to believe wealth is bad or that wealthy people are bad.
And subconsciously, you wouldn't want to become something you despise.
Exactly. Why would your subconscious let you become something you view negatively? Resentment builds a wall. Admiration, on the other hand,
opens the door. Yeah. Makes you think, maybe I could learn from them.
Right. It fosters learning, inspiration, possibility. Resentment is often rooted in envy, jealousy, negative assumptions like they must have cheated or they're just lucky.
It's a disempowering feeling.
Totally. Admiration shifts the focus to what's possible, what you can achieve. Of course, it's important to admire ethical wealth creation, not just wealth for its own sake. Healthy admiration looks at strategies while still being aware of fairness.
Good point. So how do we cultivate that admiration, especially if we feel a twinge of resentment sometimes?
Eker has this practice. Bless that which you want.
Bless it.
Yeah. When you see someone with something you desire, a successful business, a nice home, financial freedom, consciously send them a blessing. Wish them well. And notice any negative feelings that come up in you when you do it. Acknowledge them, then consciously replace them with admiration or positive thoughts. It's about retraining your response.
That's an interesting mental exercise. Okay, staying on the theme of other people who we hang out with must matter too, right?
Oh, absolutely. That's wealth file, #7. Associate with positive, successful people versus negative, unsuccessful people. Energy is contagious.
That's that old idea, isn't it? You are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with.
That's the essence of it. Eker argues the mindset, the energy, the conversations of the people around you significantly influence your own thoughts and results.
So being around positive, ambitious people can kind of lift you up.
Yeah, they can inspire you, motivate you, share insights, model successful behaviors. It creates a supportive environment for growth.
And the opposite, hanging out with negative or unsuccessful people
can drag you down. It can reinforce limiting beliefs, fuel discouragement, drain your energy. Their negativity can subtly sabotage your own efforts.
But what if some of those negative people are like family? You can't just cut everyone off, right?
No, and Eker acknowledges that. It's not about being ruthless. It's about being conscious of the influence.
Boy.
With negative influences you can't easily avoid, he suggests limiting exposure, setting boundaries, consciously counteracting their negativity in your own mind, protecting your own headspace.
That sounds more manageable.
Very good.
What are the actionable steps here?
One concrete action is to read biographies of successful people. Immerse yourself in their stories, their thinking.
Okay, learn from role models.
Right. Another is to make a conscious effort to spend less time with individuals you identify as consistently negative or discouraging the downers, as you might call them. Seek out more positive interactions.
Makes sense. Okay, let's shift to something Eker apparently thinks is a huge stumbling block for many: receiving.
Yes. This is wealth file, #10. Excellent receivers versus poor receivers. And you're right, Eker calls poor receiving the #1 reason most people don't reach their full financial potential.
#1. Wow. Why is just receiving so hard for people?
Well, there are a few layers. A big one is feelings of unworthiness. Deep down, many people don't feel they deserve abundance or success.
Where does that come from?
Often past conditioning. Hearing things like money is the root of all evil or feeling not good enough in general can translate into feeling unworthy of wealth. Another big one is that old saying,
it's better to give than to receive.
That's the one. Eker calls it total hogwash.
Really? But it sounds so virtuous.
He argues it creates an imbalance. Giving and receiving are two sides of the same universal coin. You need both for flow. If everyone only gave and no one received, giving itself would become impossible, right?
Huh. I never thought of it that way. For someone to give, someone else has to receive.
Exactly. If you're a poor receiver, you're essentially telling the universe, nope, don't send abundance my way.
Yeah.
You're blocking the flow.
Okay, that's a powerful reframe.
Yeah.
So how do we become better receivers? feel more worthy?
First, consciously work on that feeling of worthiness. Recognize you deserve good things just by being you, but practically. Practice receiving.
Practice receiving compliments, maybe, instead of deflecting them?
Yes. Receive compliments graciously. Say thank you. Receive help when offered. And practice receiving money with joy and gratitude. Eker has this fun money magnet practice.
Oh, yeah.
Anytime you find money, even a penny, or receive unexpected money, get genuinely excited, thank the universe, and declare out loud, I'm a money magnet.
Huh. I like that.
It sounds silly, but it reinforces a positive, receptive energy towards money. He also emphasizes self-nurturing, spending some money purely on things that make you feel good, pampered, abundant. Have a play account. It reinforces that you are worthy of receiving pleasure and good things.
Actively celebrating receiving. That's a cool idea. Okay, let's switch gears to how we measure financial success.
Right. This brings us to Wealth File #13. Focus on net worth versus working income. A really important distinction.
Because most people, and society in general, tend to focus almost entirely on income, right? How much do you make?
That's the standard question, isn't it? But Eker argues that your income is only one part of the picture. True financial wealth is measured by your net worth.
Which is assets minus liabilities. Everything you own minus everything you owe.
Exactly. Your house, investments, savings, minus mortgage, debts, loans. That's the real scorecard of wealth, not just the paycheck.
So why is focusing only on income potentially misleading?
Because of Parkinson's law, remember that one?
Yeah. Expenses rise to meet income.
You got it. If you only focus on increasing your income, you'll likely just increase your spending to match. You don't necessarily build lasting wealth that way. Income is crucial, but it's what you do with it that builds net worth.
So what are the key components of building net worth, according to Eker?
He lists 4 pillars. Income, you need it. Savings, setting money aside. Investments, making your money grow. And simplification.
Simplification, meaning spending less.
Yeah, consciously managing your lifestyle and expenses so you have more available to save and invest. It's about being mindful of where the money goes.
Got it. So the actionable step here is pretty clear, I guess.
Absolutely. Calculate your net worth, list your assets, list your liabilities, do the subtraction, and then track it regularly. Eker suggests quarterly.
Just the act of tracking it makes you more focused on improving it.
Exactly. What you focus on expands. Okay, next file. How about how rich people use the money they do have?
Yeah, good one.
That's Wealth File, #15. Have money work hard for you versus work hard for your money. This is about leverage.
The classic passive income idea versus just trading time for money.
That's the core of it. Eker contrasts the mindset of relying solely on your own active labor for income with the strategy of getting your money to generate income for you.
Through things like investments, businesses that run without you.
Exactly. Stocks, bonds, real estate rentals, intellectual property, automated businesses, things that produce income passively. He stresses that working hard is often necessary, especially at the start.
But it's not enough on its own to build significant wealth.
Right. You need to transition at least partially to having your money work just as hard or ideally harder than you do. That's how you achieve scale and freedom.
So it's about building those assets that pay you even when you're sleeping.
That's the goal. Financial freedom, as he defines it, is when your passive income covers your desired lifestyle expenses.
Which requires educating yourself about investments and finding ways to create those passive streams.
Absolutely. Learning about different options is key. Okay, let's tackle a big one. Fear. It stops so many people.
Oh yeah. Wealth File, #16. Act in spite of fear versus let fear stop you. This feels universal.
It really does. Everyone feels fear when stepping outside their comfort zone, especially with money, fear of failure, fear of losing money, fear of looking stupid.
So rich people don't feel fear.
No, that's not what Eker says. They absolutely feel fear. The difference is they don't let the fear stop them.
They act anyway.
They act in spite of the fear. They understand that discomfort and fear are often signals that you're growing, that you're pushing boundaries.
Whereas the poor mindset lets fear paralyze them.
Often, yes. Fear of failure, fear of rejection, fear of the unknown.
Yeah.
It keeps people stuck in their comfort zone, preventing them from taking the actions needed for financial growth.
So it's about building courage, resilience, maybe reframing fear.
Exactly. See, fear is just a feeling, not an absolute barrier. Eker encourages pushing your comfort zone consistently. He also reframes failure not as the opposite of success, but as a part of success, a learning opportunity.
That's a healthier way to look at it.
Yeah.
What's a practical step Eker suggests for acting despite fear?
Identify one specific action related to your finances that scares you. Maybe making that call, looking into an investment, asking for a raise.
Okay.
And then commit to taking one small step towards it this week, even though it feels uncomfortable. Just one step. It builds momentum and proves to yourself you can act despite fear.
Break it down, take a small action. Good advice. Okay, last file we're covering today.
Let's finish with wealth file, #17. Constantly learn and grow versus think they already know. This is about mindset towards knowledge itself.
And Eker has that phrase, doesn't he? About the 3 most dangerous words.
He does, I know that.
Why is that so dangerous?
Because the moment you think you know it all, you close yourself off to learning. And in today's world, things change so fast, especially in finance and business.
So wealthy people tend to be lifelong learners.
Absolutely. They embrace a growth mindset. They're curious, they read, they attend seminars, they hire coaches. They understand that to earn more, they need to learn more. They know their success depends on continuous growth.
And the alternative mindset
is often a fixed mindset, thinking you've learned all you need to know. This leads to complacency, resistance to new ideas, and eventually falling behind. Eker himself talks about his own shift from being a know-it-all to a learn-it-all as being critical to his success.
So stay humble, stay curious, keep learning.
That's the essence of it. Practically, he suggests committing to reading at least one business or personal development book a month, taking courses, maybe even hiring a coach or mentor if you're serious about accelerating your growth.
It really emphasizes that building wealth is an ongoing journey of self-improvement. Okay, wow. We've covered a lot of ground with these will files.
We really have.
If you had to boil down the main message from Eker's book, what would it be?
I think the absolute core takeaway is that your internal world, your money blueprint, your beliefs, your mindset creates your external financial results. Significantly.
It's the foundation for everything else.
Exactly. And the book offers this framework, these 17 files, to help you identify where your thinking might be holding you back, and then gives you tools like the declarations, the actions, to start reprogramming those limiting beliefs.
Shifting from scarcity to abundance, limitation to possibility.
That's a great way to put it. It's about changing the inner game first.
It certainly gives you a lot to reflect on. You start thinking, okay, which of these files really hit home for me? Where might my blueprint need some updating?
For sure. And I think for many people, those areas around responsibility, file #1, commitment, file #3, thinking bigger, file #4, and definitely receiving, file #10, those are often areas where hidden blocks reside.
Yeah, those feel like common sticking points. And Eker is really clear that just listening to this or reading the book isn't enough, right?
Not at all. He's all about application. Knowledge is potential power. Action is real power. You have to actually do the exercises, practice the new ways of thinking, take the actions. That's where the change happens.
Test them out in your own life, as he said.
Yeah.
Well, if this deep dive has sparked your interest, we absolutely recommend reading the full book, Secrets of the Millionaire Mind. There's much more detail and nuance in there.
Definitely worth the read.
And we'll link to it, plus some other resources we mentioned, Eker's company, Peak Potentials, other great books like The Millionaire Next Door or The Richest Man in Babylon, podcasts like Tony Robbins or Dave Ramsey, and useful sites like Investopedia. Lots out there to support your journey.
And just remember, this is a process. Understanding your blueprint, shifting beliefs. It takes time and consistent effort. Be patient with yourself. Celebrate the progress.
Good reminder. Okay, so let's leave everyone with a final thought to chew on. A provocative question, perhaps.
Sounds good.
All right, now that you've explored some of these secrets of the millionaire mind, what's one belief you're ready to challenge this week? And more importantly, what's one specific action you'll take to start rewriting your own financial story?